Welcome to the Talking TC podcast, the official podcast of Tri-County Regional Vocational Technical High School located in Franklin, Massachusetts. On our podcast, we will chat with guests that run the gamut from government officials to school administrators to alums and students and other members of the Tri-County community. So sit back and relax as we proudly present Talking TC with our host, Khalil Matus.
Welcome to episode 5 of Talkin TC. Today, we are joined by Mrs. Freya Messias, who is one of our school adjustment counselors. We felt like it was really important to have Mrs. Messias as a guest, as often for a variety of reasons, we as a school do not highlight a spotlight on mental health services provided to our students. Welcome, Mrs. Messias.
Thank you so much for having me, Khalil.
Freya Messias is a licensed rehabilitation counselor who has worked at Tri-County as a school adjustment counselor for over 18 years. As an undergraduate, she studied French and Spanish literature at McGill University in Montreal. She completed her master's degree in rehabilitation counseling at Assumption College. Mrs. Messias is a strong advocate for students committed to their success and happiness at Tri-County. She's also passionate about culture and diversity in foreign languages. She co-manages Tri-County's English language learner services. So, my first question for you is, although no day is typical, can you give me and our listeners a feel for what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I have the pleasure of being able to meet with students pretty much all day long. I'm not saying I don't also have some meetings that are required mixed in there, and some collaboration that I do during the course of the day with faculty members or parents or outside providers. But mostly I'm meeting with students, typically on the half hour all day long. And I focus on coping skills, how to help students navigate whatever challenges are coming their way during their time at Tri-County. It could be anything from maybe challenges in academics or in the vocational shops, challenges with mood, maybe some increase in depression or anxiety, trying to help navigate the bumps that may come along. Maybe sometimes it's socially related or relationship related. It could be anything really, just whatever the student identifies as a bump in the road during their time here.
It's wonderful. It's a great thing for many students to have that, because it just helps you get through the school day sometimes for some people.
Yeah, I think it's an important service to provide, and Tri-County has always recognized the importance of that and the importance of student well-being.
Okay. Question 2. What do you think is the most challenging part of your job?
The most challenging part of my job is that I really enjoy my time with students, and I wish I had more of it. So with the amount of hours in the day, I kind of do what I can to meet with as many students as possible, but I always wish I had more time for each individual student. I think everybody deserves that, and it's hard sometimes to be able to give as much time to people as I would like to.
Nevertheless, what is the most satisfying part of your job?
So most people would probably say being able to see progress is satisfying, and it definitely is. I love seeing the progress my students make when they come in with concerns or come in with worries, and they're able to overcome those challenges. They're able to meet the goals that they came in for. It's great to see that. But for me, the most satisfying part is just the courage it took to come forth to begin with and to say, you know what, things aren't going so great for me in this area right now, and I could use some help. And that, to me, is the most inspiring. And to be able to witness that kind of courage and determination to persevere through challenges.
It takes it takes a strong person to be able to come forward and say they're not doing that well.
It
So
does.
it's sometimes hard for students to come forward. I know for many it is.
It can be, which is also why it's helpful. I think we have a community of people here that can sometimes also notice when students might not be doing so great. So if it's not the student themselves that comes forward, it might be a teacher that says, hey, you know what, I noticed in history class, your energy seems kind of low. You know, I'm wondering if you're okay. And they may refer a student to me, and then I can have that kind of conversation. And so, but I always find that it takes courage for students to have those conversations and to be willing to work on things. So it is very cool to be part of that process.
there seems to be that there's a negative stigma around mental health for both young people and adults receiving counseling and therapy service. Has that kind of stigma gone away over time?
Well, I don't know if it's completely gone away, but what I will say is that your generation is much better at accessing supports than mine was. In my day, you really didn't talk to adults much, especially not in school. Whereas I think in your generation, there's an understanding and a feel that, you know what, if something's getting in your way, ask for help. Ask for help. Don't let it impact your chances of going where you want to do, doing the things that you want to do. Don't let that interfere. And I think students are much more open and about those kinds of conversations than they were in my generation. So I think that stigma has gone away a little bit. I'm not saying it's not still there in some ways, but it's much better than it was, I think, for earlier generations. And I think especially at Tri-County, the students here are passionate about things they do. They're motivated. They're all here because they want to be here. Nobody's here because you have to be here. You're here because you chose to be here. And because of that, that comes along with a group of people who have goals for themselves, things that they want out of their experience here. And they're not willing to let that go by the wayside. So they're willing to work on some things to make sure that they can achieve what they want during their 4 years here. So that's pretty cool to be part of all of that.
And I know I've seen that there's way more options out there for many people, and you kind of know that you're not alone in this, and that there's someone out there you can talk to and that can be there to help you get through it.
Absolutely. And we like to be that resource for students. And so there's school adjustment counselors, there's guidance counselors. We like to be there so that students don't feel alone, so that they can feel supported as they go through these 4 years.
So, if you were to speak to a parent of a high school student, what would be some advice you'd give them regarding mental health? And or are there any warning signs that parents should look for when dealing with teenagers?
Okay, so the first thing I would suggest to parents when your child is coming to Tri-County is encourage them to be involved in things. Do everything you can to have them participate in, whether it be drama club, garden club, sports teams, whatever it might be. Encourage involvement, encourage interest in the school in whatever kind of way your child is going, because you really want to establish as many social connections and peer connections as possible. The other thing I would say is if you notice something different about your child, let's say maybe not sleeping well or loss of appetite, or maybe not hanging out with the same friends, or maybe not doing so well in school, whatever it might be, if there's a bit of a change that concerns you, my suggestion is just reach out to the school. We're with your child every day. Don't do it alone. We're here to support you. We will do what we can to check in with your child, see where they're at, what can we do to help support whatever it is that's going on. So I think those would be my two main things to say to parents. Get your children involved in things, and then don't feel like you have to do it alone.
So, how challenging was delivering service to students during COVID?
It was challenging, but we quickly, as a school adjustment counselors, quickly pivoted to online counseling. So what we had to do very quickly is find very confidential types of platforms that we could meet with our students. When we were completely out of school, I did that from home all day long and just scheduled people remotely, which was interesting. It was very different. Wasn't all bad. There were some positives. I got to meet people's dogs and cats and goldfish. I had a little bit of window into their lives that maybe I would have had otherwise. So there were some parts of it that were good. It was very structured and organized, but challenging nonetheless. And then when we came back into the building, I was still meeting with students remotely on their academic week. So that was challenging as well. I was able to do it. I feel like you can forge relationships with counseling online, and that's how I met, for example, the seniors that I work with now. That's how we started together. We met that way, and then it was kind of interesting to finally meet each other in person when we did, and to say, hey, we're going to start meeting in person. I'm going to get to actually meet you, which was wonderful when that happened. So we got through it, and I think from a counseling perspective, we had a lot to deal with when everyone came back to school. But I think you just sort of have to adapt to where you're at. We had to move everything very quickly online, just like all the students had to adapt and the teachers. But I was very grateful and appreciative when we got back to the one-on-one type of interaction.
And I think the online counseling that probably helped so many people, because I know there was a lot of people going through tough times with COVID, and it was real tough for even myself. I know it was tough.
For everybody, yeah, I think so. I think for most students, there was a sense of isolation or an overwhelming sense of worry, fear, maybe fear for their own relatives, for just fear for where things were at in the world. And I think it was important to keep those services going. So although they looked different, we were able to keep them going. It was very important to us to be able to provide that service to students during a time, not just personal crisis, but world crisis.
It's a great thing. With the next question, how was the proliferation and prevalence of social media and cell phones impacted mental health?
Okay, it's a good question. It's one that people talk about a lot, right? So obviously not everything about social media and cell phones is bad. Obviously this podcast that you do is wonderful. So, lots of things about social media and cell phones have helped our lives and have helped us have easier lives in a lot of ways. Where I see it being problematic for students is when the social media or the cell phones take over time that could be spent having more meaningful one-on-one relationships or more meaningful contact. So I'll give you an example. If you go by a lunch table and you see a lunch table where everybody's talking and gabbing and excited and laughing and making jokes, and then you go by another one where you might have 7 or 8 people all on their phones. Sort of a missed opportunity there. It's not the end of the world, but it's a missed opportunity for more meaningful connection. So in some ways, I think that it's a balance, and it's about moderation, using those things in moderation, and not letting them take over the time that you have in your day. The other thing that I really notice about cell phones with my students is a lot of students have difficulty with the idea of putting issues on the back burner or just kind of waiting to be able to figure them out. So let's say you have an argument with someone in the morning and you say, okay, I'm going to just let the day go by, and after school, I'll catch up with the person and I'll talk to them and we'll work it through. Some of that ability has decreased because of cell phones and this idea of trying to fix it right away. Right away. Let me just, I'm going to text them, I'm going to figure it out, we're going to go back and forth. But meanwhile, this is all happening in English class, for example. So I think the idea of being able to table issues and just put them on the back burner and know that you'll work on them later, we don't have to resolve every problem in the moment, that's a skill that's been harder for people to do with cell phones. I think it's one we have to work on, and just saying, can we just put them away for a few hours and not have them be part of our day. And then we can get back to whatever it is that will still be there and that we can still address at a time that's not disruptive to us. And I don't think it's just students that struggle with it. It's adults as well.
I know I've had to set my own time limits and timers on my phone because they'll be taken in homework time or other time when I already have sports and stuff.
Exactly.
So it's something that it's tough to do sometimes. Sometimes you just get stuck and you just lose track of time.
Absolutely. And sometimes that's a nice thing. It can be a distraction. It can be a nice thing for short periods of time.
Yeah.
But if you find yourself not doing things you wanted to do or just wasting a lot of time, it can be not a good thing too, right? So it takes a certain amount of discipline. That's something that, my generation didn't have to think about as kids. We didn't have to discipline ourselves in that way.
So, what are some things that you like to do outside of work?
Well, creatively, I really enjoy making mosaics. That's one of my favorite pastimes. I enjoy yoga and swimming. I love spending time with family and friends. And I love to travel as much as possible.
I know me and my mom, we go down to the beach every summer. We're excited to do that. We go down to Rhode Island. We go down to the beaches there, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I love Cape Cod. That's
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
my go-to, and I just there's something about being by the ocean that just I feel like it cures all things, physical and mental, just to be by the sea, and I love being by the ocean. So I understand what you're saying, and the beaches in Rhode Island are like that too. That just really there's something incredible about being there. So I like being by the beach all seasons, winter, summer, fall. It doesn't matter when it is. It's just I really enjoy that as well.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Messias.
Thank you, Khalil.
That'll be it for our episode here on Talkin TC. You'll be able to see our videos archived on YouTube, but that's all for now. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Talking TC, a production of Tri-County Regional Vocational Technical High School in Franklin, Massachusetts. A special thanks to students in our graphic communications, computer information systems, and carpentry programs, as well as countless faculty and staff that helped bring this project to fruition. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.